My name is Isabel Catherine Weston. I'm 31 years old. On December 20th, 2024, my parents called me home for Christmas. Family reunion, my mother said on the phone. I drove 11.3 miles from my studio apartment in Portland to their Lake Oswego house, the one worth $2.1 million that I'd never be welcome to inherit. I walked into an empty house, just my grandpa, 82-year-old Arthur, sitting in his rocking chair by the window. On the kitchen counter, a handwritten note on my mother's rose-patterned notepad. You'll stay with Grandpa Arthur through the 30th. There's a Stouffer's lasagna in the freezer. P.S. Maybe caregiving is your real calling since nursing hasn't exactly made you successful. They were in Paris, first class. My father, my mother, my brother Garrett, the corporate tax attorney who'd always been worth more than me. I didn't cry. I didn't call them. I'd spent 31 years learning this lesson. I was the backup daughter, the one you call when you need someone to clean up. They didn't know that Grandpa Arthur had been watching them treat me this way for 3 decades. They didn't know what he'd decided to do about it. And when they came home 10 days later, tanned and rested from $52,000 worth of European luxury, what they found out next would cost them everything they thought they were owed. If you're still watching, take a second to like and subscribe, only if this story genuinely resonates with you. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Let me take you back to the beginning, because this wasn't just one bad Christmas. It was a lifetime of pressure, finally boiling over. May 19th, 2018. My nursing school graduation from Oregon Health and Science University. 4 years of late nights, clinical rotations, studying until my eyes burned. 127 students sat in that auditorium. 126 had families in the audience. I sat alone in Section F, Row 4, Seat 12. My parents had promised they'd be there. 3 weeks earlier, my mother had circled the date on the kitchen calendar in red marker. We wouldn't miss it for the world, honey, she'd said. The morning of graduation, 10:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. Text from Mom. Sweetie, so sorry. Garrett has emergency deposition in Seattle. Very important case. We're flying up to support him. So proud of you. Dinner on us. 30 seconds later, Venmo notification. $100 from Diane Weston. Message, congrats. $100 for 4 years of work. For a degree I'd earned while working night shifts as a CNA to pay rent because they'd used my college fund for Garrett's law school networking expenses. But someone came. Grandpa Arthur walked in 17 minutes before the ceremony started. He was wearing his navy suit, the one from 1987, still good, he'd say, and carrying a bouquet of carnations from Safeway, $12. The price tag was still on. He sat down next to me. Didn't say anything about the empty seats, just patted my hand. After I walked across that stage, after I collected my diploma, we took a photo together. Just the two of us. I sent it to the family group chat. Mom reacted with a thumbs up emoji. Dad didn't respond. Garrett wrote, "Nice, gotta run, court prep." But Grandpa, when we posed for that photo, when the stranger I'd asked held up my phone, he looked at me in a way I didn't understand then. His eyes were sharp, focused, like he was memorizing something, filing it away, like he was keeping score. Fast forward to December 14th, 2020. My 28th birthday. The worst year of my life. I was working 16-hour shifts in the COVID ward at Providence Portland Medical Center, watching people die alone because their families couldn't visit, holding iPads up to dying faces so they could say goodbye through screens. Coming home to my studio apartment, stripping off my scrubs in the hallway, terrified I'd bring the virus inside. I called my mother at 11:34 p.m. that night. I was sitting on my bathroom floor, still in my sports bra and underwear, too tired to shower. I was crying. Mom, I held another patient's hand while they died alone today. I'm terrified. I can't sleep, I can't. She cut me off. Honey, I can't talk now. We're on Zoom celebrating Garrett's promotion to senior associate. His firm partners are on the call. This is a really big moment for him. I'll call you back, okay? She never called back. The next morning, email, Starbucks e-gift card $25. Subject line, Happy birthday, Izzy, treat yourself. Garrett was making $285,000 a year at that point. I was making $68,000. But I was the one who needed to treat myself with coffee. I took a screenshot of that email. I don't know why. I just had this feeling, this instinct, that one day I'd need proof. Proof that this was real, that I wasn't imagining it. Thanksgiving 2022. November 18th, I called my mother. Are we doing Thanksgiving at the house this year? Her voice sounded surprised. Oh, sweetie, didn't we tell you? We're flying to Boston. Garrett's executive MBA program at Harvard has this wonderful family integration weekend. You understand, right? This is important for his career. Important for his career. Garrett, who already had a law degree from Georgetown, who already made six figures, who needed an executive MBA like a fish needs a bicycle, but it was Harvard, so of course they went. Alaska Airlines Flight 1832, Portland to Boston, November 22nd, 6:15 a.m. departure. They stayed 5 days. I invited Grandpa Arthur to my studio apartment. All 520 square feet of it. I'd never cooked a turkey before. I tried. It came out dry, one side burned because my oven was ancient and heated unevenly. The mashed potatoes were from a box. The cranberry sauce was from a can. We sat on my pull-out sofa bed because I didn't have a dining table. We ate off paper plates on our laps. Grandpa said, "This is the best Thanksgiving I've had in 30 years, Izzy, because someone actually wanted me here." I laughed. Thought he was being sweet, exaggerating, but he wasn't laughing. His face was serious, and in his eyes, that same look from my graduation photo, sharp, focused, keeping score. I counted once. In the 8 years between 2016 and 2024, my parents attended 0 of my life events. 0. They attended 23 of Garrett's. Work dinners, promotion parties, his son Grayson's birthday parties, his MBA graduation, networking galas, bar association awards, 23 to 0. I didn't get angry anymore. Anger requires energy, and I'd run out. I'd moved past anger into something colder. Acceptance. Numbness. The knowledge that this was just how things were. My boyfriend Trevor asked me in November 2024, "Babe, why do you still answer when they call?" "Because they're my family." "No," he said. "Family shows up. They just use you." I didn't argue, because he was right. So when my phone rang on December 15th, 2024, at 7:13 p.m., and I saw Mom on the screen, I should have known. I should have known that the warmth in her voice wasn't love. It was bait. Sunday, December 15th, 2024, 7:13 p.m. I was at Trevor's apartment. He was making homemade carbonara, the real kind, with guanciale he'd driven to a specialty butcher in southeast Portland to get. The kitchen smelled like garlic and black pepper. We were supposed to have a quiet night. Maybe watch a movie, maybe talk about the holidays. My phone lit up. Mom. I almost didn't answer, but I always answered. "Hello? Izzy, sweetheart?" Her voice was different. Warm. Soft. Almost guilty? "I know this is last minute, but we'd love to have you home for Christmas this year. Real family time. Just all of us together. It's been too long." I blinked, covered the phone, whispered to Trevor, "They want me for Christmas." Trevor's eyebrows went up. He knew the history. "What about Garrett?" I asked. "Oh, he'll be there too. The whole family. Grandpa's been asking about you." That made me pause. Grandpa never asked them about me. He just called me directly. Every Sunday at 6 p.m., like clockwork. We'd talk for 20 minutes about his tomato garden, about my patients, about nothing important, everything important. I hesitated. Okay, yeah, I can come. Wonderful. Mom's voice went up an octave. Relief. Or something like it. Come the morning of the 20th. We'll have breakfast together, spend the whole week. It'll be lovely. Then she added, almost as an afterthought, and honey, don't bring Trevor this year. Just family, okay? We need to reconnect. Red flag. Giant, waving red flag. But I ignored it. Because in my head, the words, they want me home, were echoing like a prayer that had finally been answered. Okay, I said. I'll be there. After I hung up, Trevor put down his wooden spoon, turned off the stove. Babe, think about it. When was the last time they invited you to anything without needing something? Maybe they've changed, I said. Maybe. People don't change, Isabel. Patterns do. And their pattern is using you. I felt defensive, protective of them, even though they'd never protected me. They're my parents. I have to believe. You don't have to believe anything. You choose to, every time. He was right. I knew he was right, but I couldn't stop hoping. Trevor had been planning something. I didn't know the details, but I'd seen the small velvet box on the top shelf of his closet when I'd reached for an extra blanket 2 weeks ago. I'd seen him researching Multnomah Falls, looking at permits for the viewing area, mumbling about fairy lights and timing. He was going to propose on Christmas Eve. And I was about to cancel everything for a family that had never chosen me. I got in my car, a 2011 Honda Civic with 183,000 miles on it. The check engine light had been on for 6 months. I couldn't afford to fix it yet. I took I-5 south to Highway 43, exited at Oswego. The drive took 28 minutes, light traffic, Christmas music on every radio station. I turned the radio off. Their house sat at the corner of Glenmorey Drive. Wrought iron fence, granite stone driveway. 4 bedrooms, 4,200 square feet, worth $2.1 million, according to Zillow. I'd checked once, late at night, wondering what it would be like to inherit something, anything. The driveway was empty, no BMW X5, that was Garrett's, no Lexus ES350. Dad's, no Mercedes GLC, Mom's, just Grandpa's 1998 Ford F-150, parked crooked to one side. Navy blue paint faded to gray in patches, 365,000 miles on it. He'd told me that number proudly last month. I sat in my car, engine off, counted my heartbeats, 105 beats per minute. Too fast. Something was wrong. But I opened the door anyway. 10:08 a.m. I walked up to the front door. It was unlocked. I pushed it open. Mom? Dad? I'm here. Silence. The house was cold. I checked the thermostat in the hallway, 64 degrees Fahrenheit. They always kept it at 72 degrees Fahrenheit when they were home. My mother hated being cold. The foyer had an 8-foot Christmas tree, white and gold lights, perfectly arranged. 14 wrapped boxes underneath. I counted them later. 12 had tags for Garrett, Brittany, and Grayson. 2 were labeled Gerald and Diane from Us with Love. 0 had my name. I walked through to the living room. The fireplace was cold, gray ash, at least 2 days old. No coffee smell from the kitchen. No dishes in the sink. The granite counters gleamed, untouched. And then I saw him. Grandpa Arthur, sitting in his rocking chair by the bay window that overlooked the rose garden. He was wearing his flannel shirt, the blue plaid one, 20 years old, with a patch on the right elbow where he'd sewn it himself, brown khakis, white New Balance sneakers from 2003. He was staring out the window. He didn't turn when I came in. Grandpa? I walked closer. Where is everyone? He turned his head slowly. His face showed no surprise, like he'd been expecting this exact moment. Europe, he said. Calm. Factual. What? Paris. Then Switzerland. Then Venice, I believe. He gestured toward the kitchen with one gnarled hand. Arthritis had twisted his knuckles years ago. Your mother left you a note. The world tilted slightly. They're in Europe? He didn't answer, just pointed again. I walked to the kitchen on legs that felt numb. On the black granite counter sat my mother's notepad. Rose pattern, pastel pink, from William Sonoma, $18 for 50 sheets. She used it for grocery lists and passive-aggressive reminders. The handwriting was her perfect cursive, former piano teacher handwriting, every letter practiced. I read the first line. Isabel, emergency change of plans. Emergency. The word emergency. Like this was a crisis. Like Garrett inviting them to Europe was something that required immediate action, and I was just the solution to the leftover problem. My brain refused to process it the first time. I read it again. Isabel, emergency change of plans. Garrett invited us to Europe. His treat, so generous. We leave this morning. You'll stay with Grandpa Arthur through the 30th. He needs his meds twice daily. You're a nurse, you know the drill. There's a Stauffer's lasagna in the freezer. We'll bring you back Swiss chocolate. P.S. This is good practice for you. Maybe caregiving is your real calling since nursing hasn't exactly made you successful. Mom. I read it 3 times. The blue ink was fresh. Bic pen, no smearing. She'd written this around 8:30 a.m., I guessed. Right before they left for Portland International Airport. Alaska Airlines Flight 5124 to Paris. Charles de Gaulle, departing 11:45 a.m. I looked that up later. They hadn't called, hadn't texted, a note, left on a counter. Emergency change of plans. His treat, so generous. You're a nurse, you know the drill. Hasn't exactly made you successful. My hands should have been shaking. I waited for tears, for anger, for something. Nothing came. Just cold. I folded the note carefully, put it in my hoodie pocket, walked back to the living room. Grandpa Arthur still hadn't moved, still staring out at the garden. I looked up. Above the fireplace. The mantel. 3 stockings hung there. Red velvet, gold embroidery. Gerald. Blue velvet, silver embroidery. Diane. Green velvet, gold embroidery. Garrett. The mantel was 6 feet long. Plenty of room for more. But there were only 3. Grandpa said quietly, not looking at me. They hung them Wednesday night. December 18th. 2 days before they called me. 2 days before they invited me home. They'd already decorated, already planned Christmas, already decided who belonged. I stood there staring at those 3 stockings, at the empty space beside them, and I realized they'd planned all of this, the decorations, the tree, the trip, the note, everything. They just hadn't planned on me being part of it. December 20th, 10:14 a.m. Somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, my family was drinking champagne in business class, flying toward Paris. And I was standing in a $2.1 million house I'd never inherit, with a man they'd left behind like luggage they didn't want to carry. The only difference was, Grandpa Arthur was the only one who'd ever actually wanted me there. I pulled the note back out of my pocket, unfolded it, read it again slowly this time. Every word. You're a nurse, you know the drill. Using my profession as a tool, as justification, as if my 8 years of training, my state license, my expertise in end-of-life care, all of it existed just so I could be their unpaid caregiver when convenient. His treat, so generous. 3 exclamation points in a 6-sentence note about Garrett, 0 about me. Hasn't exactly made you successful. She'd underlined the word, exactly. I hadn't noticed that the first time. She'd pressed the pen down harder there. Emphasis, intentional. My mother had deliberately told me, in writing, that my career, helping dying patients maintain dignity in their final days, was not successful. Garrett helped corporations avoid paying taxes. He made $285,000 a year. He was successful. I made $68,000 helping people die in peace. I was not. I walked to the freezer, opened it. One item inside, Stuffer's family-size lasagna, $8.99. The price tag was still on it. That was it. That was the food they'd left for 10 days for an 82-year-old man with diabetes. I opened the refrigerator. 2 liters of 1% milk, expiration date December 18th, already 2 days expired. A jar of Dijon mustard, 3 eggs, a bag of salad mix, wilting brown at the edges. The pantry, granola bars, canned soup, crackers. They'd left enough food so Grandpa wouldn't starve. Nothing more. From the living room, Grandpa called out, "Don't worry about food, Izzy. I've got soup." His voice wasn't weak, wasn't asking for pity. It was steady, controlled. I closed the refrigerator and stared at it. I thought about calling my mother, thought about what I'd say. In my head, the conversation played out. "Mom, you left me here without even asking if I was free? Sweetie, you weren't busy, and you're so good at this kind of thing. Why didn't you tell me sooner? It was last minute. Garrett surprised us with this generous gift. I had plans with Trevor. Oh, honey, you see him all the time. This is family." I knew that script by heart. I'd lived it for 31 years. Every time I objected, I got gaslit. "You're overreacting. You're too sensitive. We thought you'd be happy to help." If I called, I'd end up apologizing to them. Somehow, I always did. So I didn't call. Instead, I texted Trevor. 10:33 a.m. "They're not here. It's just me and Grandpa. I'll explain later." His reply came in seconds. "Jesus Christ, Isabel." I didn't respond. What would I even say? "You were right? I'm sorry? I should have listened." All true. All useless now. I put my phone away. Looked at the note one more time. Then I did something I can't fully explain. I didn't crumple it. Didn't throw it away. I folded it neatly along the creases my mother had already made. Put it back in my pocket. Some part of me, the hospice nurse part maybe, the part trained to document everything, knew I needed to keep it. Evidence. Of what? I wasn't sure yet. I walked back to the living room. Grandpa was still in his chair, still looking out at the garden where nothing was blooming. December in Oregon. Just bare branches and dead leaves. "Grandpa," I said quietly, "I'm staying. For the 10 days. Until they get back." He finally turned to look at me, really look at me. "You're a good girl, Izzy," he said. "Better than they deserve." And then he said something that I didn't understand until much later. "They didn't know that about you. But I always did." His eyes were sharp, focused, like he knew something I didn't, like he'd been waiting for exactly this moment. December 20th, evening. My old room wasn't a room anymore. It was storage. Boxes of Garrett's old law textbooks. My mother's sewing machine she'd used twice. Christmas decorations from the 90s. I found my old twin bed frame under a plastic tarp, pulled it out, made it up with sheets from the linen closet. The room smelled like dust and forgotten things. At 7:45 p.m., I went downstairs. "Grandpa, let me see your medications." He handed me a CVS pharmacy bag without argument. Inside, 4 prescription bottles. Metformin 500 milligrams. Take 1 tablet twice daily for type 2 diabetes. Atorvastatin 20 milligrams. Take 1 tablet every evening for cholesterol. Baby aspirin 81 milligrams. Take 1 tablet every morning. Glucosamine 500 milligrams. Take as needed for joint pain. I set alarms on my phone. 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. for the metformin. I checked the dosage, the prescribing doctor, the fill date, everything current. "Grandpa, when did you last check your blood sugar?" "This morning, before they left. It was 131. "Can I check it now?" He held out his hand. I pricked his finger with his glucometer, 128 milligrams per deciliter, good control. I logged it in a notebook I found in the kitchen drawer. He watched me do all this. Then he said, "You take this seriously." "I'm a hospice nurse, Grandpa. I don't assume, I verify." He studied my face for a long moment. "Hospice. You take care of people who are dying. I help them die with dignity. There's a difference." "Do they know what you do?" he asked. "Really understand?" "Who?" "Your parents. Garrett. Do they understand you hold people's hands when they take their last breath?" The question hung in the air for 4 seconds. I counted. "No," I said finally. "I don't think they do." Grandpa nodded once, sharp, decisive, like I'd just confirmed something he already knew. I woke up at 6:30 a.m. to sounds downstairs. I went to the window. Grandpa was in the garden. It was 34 degrees Fahrenheit outside, frost on the grass. He was wearing his flannel and a canvas jacket, kneeling by the raised beds, pulling weeds from around his tomato plants. They weren't fruiting, wrong season, but he tended them anyway. I got dressed, went out. "Morning, Grandpa." He looked up, surprised. "You're up early." "Hospice nurses don't sleep in. Can I help?" We worked in silence for 20 minutes. He showed me his tools. A hand trowel from 1983. Gardening gloves with 6 patches sewn on by hand. Everything old. Everything maintained. "Your grandmother planted these in 1987, he said, touching a tomato vine. "I've kept them going 37 years. "You could hire someone to do this." "I could, but then who would remember her?" We went inside. I made coffee in his Mr. Coffee machine, the one from 1991, $19.99 price tag still stuck to the bottom. He showed me. "This machine is older than some of my coworkers," I said. "Still works. Why replace it?" We sat at the kitchen table with our coffee. Just us. The house was so quiet. Then Grandpa asked, "Izzy, do you know how much this house is worth?" I blinked. Uh, Zillow says around $2.1 million? "And do you know who owns it?" I hesitated. "Dad?" "No." He didn't elaborate, just sipped his coffee, stood up, walked to his chair in the living room, left me sitting there with that single word hanging in the air. No. December 21st, afternoon. Grandpa wanted to go to the grocery store. I offered to drive. "I'll drive," he said. 365,000 miles on that truck. I know every rattle. Let an old man have his dignity." So I sat in the passenger seat of his 1998 Ford F-150. Navy blue, paint faded. The interior smelled like sawdust and Old Spice. The radio was AM/FM only. No Bluetooth, no auxiliary cord. He drove 12 miles to Fred Meyer on Highway 43. Steady, careful. 5 miles under the speed limit. Other cars honked when they passed. He didn't care. While he went inside to buy soup and bread, I sat in the truck. I opened the glove compartment looking for tissues. Found the registration, insurance card, and a business card. Bernard Price, Esquire, Estate Planning and Trust Law. Portland, Oregon, 553-555-192. The card was old, corners bent, on the back in Grandpa's handwriting. Call before December 28th. Today was December 21st. I stared at that card for a long time. Estate planning, trusts, a deadline. I put it back exactly where I'd found it. When Grandpa came back with 2 bags of groceries, I didn't mention it. We had dinner at 6 p.m. Campbell's tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches Grandpa made on a cast-iron skillet from 1975. We sat at the kitchen table, just the 2 of us. "Your parents called me yesterday," Grandpa said. "From Paris." I looked up, surprised. "They did?" "Asked if I was managing okay. I said you were here. Your mother said, 'Oh, good, then you're taken care of.' She hung up after 90 seconds. He pulled out his phone, a flip phone, not a smartphone, and showed me the call log. "Incoming, Diane Weston, December 20th, 2:47 p.m. Duration, 1 minute 34 seconds. They hadn't asked about me, hadn't asked if I'd arrived safely, hadn't apologized for the note, for the surprise, for anything. Just, "Are you taken care of?" "At least they called," I said weakly. Grandpa set his phone down, looked at me with an intensity that made me stop chewing. "Izzy, stop defending them." No one had ever said that to me before, not even Trevor. I felt something crack in my chest, not breaking, just opening. "Grandpa," I said after a long silence, "why do you stay in this house? With them?" He was quiet for 8 seconds. "I don't stay with them, Izzy. I stay despite them. There's a difference." We finished dinner, washed dishes together, him washing, me drying. An old rhythm, comfortable. And in that quiet moment, standing side by side in that enormous empty house, I felt more at peace than I had in 10 years of family Christmases. 9:14 a.m. The landline rang. Grandpa still had a landline, a beige rotary phone from 1982 that hung on the kitchen wall. He answered. "Arthur Weston speaking." Pause. He listened. "Yes, Bernard. I received your message." Another pause. "Not yet. I need to see something first." I was sitting on the sofa in the living room, pretending to read The Death Doula's Guide to Living. But I heard every word. December 28th, 2 p.m., my house. Yes, bring the documents. Pause. Grandpa glanced at me. I looked down quickly at my book. "No, don't tell them. This is between us." He hung up. The silence that followed was electric. I kept staring at my book, not reading a word. Grandpa walked slowly to his rocking chair, sat down, picked up his own book. A Louis L'Amour Western he'd read 30 times. Bernard, the lawyer whose card was in the truck. December 28th, 2 days before my parents came home. "Bring the documents. Don't tell them." I should have asked, should have said something. Instead, I looked up. "Grandpa, is everything okay?" He smiled. Actually smiled. The first real smile I'd seen from him since I'd arrived. "Everything, Izzy, is about to be very okay." He said it like a promise. Not reassurance, not comfort, a promise. And I didn't ask what he meant, because some part of me, the part that had saved that note, that had screenshotted emails, that had been collecting evidence for years without knowing why, understood that I was supposed to wait. So I waited. Trevor called at 7 p.m. via FaceTime. I answered from the living room. Grandpa was in his chair reading. The fire I'd built in the fireplace crackled softly. "Merry Christmas Eve, babe," Trevor said. His face filled my phone screen. I could see his apartment behind him. Our apartment, really, since I stayed there 4 nights a week. "How are you holding up?" "Honestly, better than expected." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Your family texted me today. Asked if I knew where to buy authentic Swiss chocolate in Portland for you. Apparently they forgot to get you some in Switzerland." I didn't respond. I laughed, but it came out bitter. "They're in Switzerland right now. They can buy it themselves." "That's the point, Isabel. They won't." Grandpa looked up from his book. I didn't realize he'd been listening. After I hung up, Grandpa said quietly, "That your young man?" "Yeah. Trevor. He's a firefighter. He loves you." "I know." And he's right. They won't bring you chocolate. They'll forget or claim the airport shops were closed or say they ran out of room in their luggage. Grandpa set his book down. "I've watched them do this to you for 30 years. I stared at him. You noticed?" "Izzy, I'm old, not blind." Something in my throat went tight. My whole life, I'd thought I was being paranoid, sensitive, reading too much into things. Every therapist I'd ever seen had suggested maybe I was projecting, maybe I was seeking attention, maybe I needed to examine my own expectations. But here was Grandpa Arthur, 82 years old, telling me he'd seen it too. I wasn't crazy. It was real. I woke up at 7 a.m. No presents under the tree for me. I already knew that. Hadn't expected any. I went downstairs, made coffee. Grandpa was already awake, sitting in his chair. He held out an envelope. "This is for you." Inside was a handmade card, watercolor paper. He'd painted a tomato plant in shaky strokes, red fruit, green leaves. Inside, his handwriting. "Izzy, thank you for being here. Not because they asked, because you chose to. Grandpa Arthur." Tucked inside, a $50 bill, old, from 1985. The paper was soft, worn nearly to cloth. I started crying. Not because of the $50, because of the words. Because you chose to. Nobody had ever thanked me for choosing them before. Grandpa stood up, slowly, his arthritis making him wince, and hugged me. He hadn't hugged anyone in this house in years. We weren't a hugging family. But he held me for 10 seconds, and he whispered, "You're the only one who sees me as a person, not a checkbook." I pulled back. "Checkbook?" He realized what he'd said, caught himself. "Nothing. Old man rambling." But it wasn't rambling. It was deliberate. He was testing me, seeing if I'd push. I didn't. Not yet. We sat in the living room. Grandpa started talking about Weston Timber Holdings, the company he'd built. He'd never told me these stories before. "I started it in 1965, he said. One truck, one logging crew. I drove that truck myself for 15 years. Your grandmother kept the books on a card table in our garage." That's amazing. 47 years later, 2012, Weyerhaeuser offered me $24 million. I took it. I nearly dropped my coffee. $24 million? Your father thinks I spent it. Living expenses, medical bills, charity. He thinks I'm down to maybe $200,000 in savings. Are you? He smiled. Small, sharp. No. My heart started pounding. I invested the $24 million, conservative portfolio, balanced funds. It's grown to $20.3 million. The dividends throw off about $600,000 a year. I live on $38,000. I track every penny. Where does the rest go? Donations. Anonymous. Scholarships for kids in Klatskani, that's my hometown. Funding for hospice care programs. He looked at me when he said hospice. Veteran services. Nobody knows. Not even Gerald. Why hide it? Because I wanted to see who loved me for me. He leaned forward in his chair. Turns out, only one person did. He was looking right at me. My hands were shaking. Grandpa Arthur had $20 million, and my family had left him in an empty house with an $8.99 frozen lasagna. We were sitting by the fire again. I was on the floor, leaning against the stone hearth. Grandpa was in his chair. He asked suddenly, "Izzy, if you could choose your family, truly choose, would you choose them?" The question sat between us like a stone. 12 seconds of silence. I counted my breaths. "No," I said finally. "Why not?" My voice cracked. "Because they don't see me. I'm a tool, a backup plan, a convenience. I've spent 31 years trying to earn something they're never going to give me." "And what's that?" I had to force the words out. "Love. Respect. Just being wanted." Grandpa nodded slowly, deliberately. "Good. Good? Good that you finally said it out loud. Truth is the first step." "First step to what?" "You'll see. December 28th. The lawyer. The documents. The phone call." "Grandpa, what's happening on the 28th? His eyes were steady, clear, focused. "Justice, Izzy. Quiet, legal, irreversible justice." December 27th. Morning. Grandpa asked me to drive him to the bank, U.S. Bank, Lake Oswego branch. He went into the vault alone. I waited in the lobby. 18 minutes. He came out carrying a brown leather folder, secured with a brass combination lock. He didn't open it, just put it in his canvas bag. In the car, on the way home, he said, "Tomorrow, 2 p.m., a lawyer named Bernard Price will come to the house. I need you there." Why? Because this involves you. My heart hammered. Involves me how? He didn't answer, just stared out the window at the gray Oregon sky. Back at the house, Grandpa went to his room. I heard him on the phone. Couldn't make out words, just the low rumble of his voice. When he came back downstairs, he looked settled, like a decision had been made. I texted Trevor, "Something big is happening tomorrow. I can't explain yet, but I think I'm going to be okay." His reply, "You've always been okay, Isabel. They just made you think you weren't." I read that text 5 times. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in my childhood bed that wasn't mine anymore, in a room full of other people's boxes, and I thought about 31 years, graduations missed, birthdays forgotten, Thanksgivings alone. COVID shifts when I was terrified and no one called. Trevor's proposal delayed. The note. Maybe caregiving is your real calling since nursing hasn't exactly made you successful. And I realized something. I didn't need forgiveness anymore. I needed justice. While I lived those 7 days with Grandpa in silence and simplicity, my family lived something very different. I know because I watched. Garrett's wife, Brittany, has an Instagram account, @BritWestonLux, 3,400 followers. She documents everything. I followed it obsessively, screenshotted every post. I don't know why. The same instinct that made me save the note, evidence. December 21st, 2:34 p.m. Brittany's post. Photo of champagne flutes on a breakfast table. Eiffel Tower perfectly framed in a floor-to-ceiling window behind them. Caption. Paris Magic #, Le Maurice, #living our best life. Le Maurice. I looked it up. $1,200 per night. They had 2 rooms, one for my parents, one for Garrett and Brittany and little Grayson. 4 nights in Paris, $9,600. While I was checking Grandpa's blood sugar and making sure he took his pills twice daily. New post. All 5 of them on a ski slope. My father in a black parka, my mother in white, Garrett and Brittany in matching red jackets, Grayson in a tiny blue snowsuit. Caption. Christmas Eve, Eve in the Swiss Alps, #the Chetty Andermatt, #family goals. The Chetty Andermatt. I looked it up too. $1,800 per night. 3 nights, 2 rooms, $10,800. I did the math in a notebook, late at night, unable to sleep. First-class flights, Portland to Paris. Round trip, approximately $9,300 per adult. 3 adults, $27,900. Hotels, $9,600 plus $10,800 plus. I looked up Venice next. Amman, Venice at $2,100 per night for 3 nights. 2 rooms equals $12,600. Total hotels, $32,000. Dining. Brittany posted photos from 3 Michelin-starred restaurants. I researched the tasting menus. Average $600 per person, times 5 people, times 2 meals a day for 10 days. Conservative estimate, $60,000. No, that was too high. Grayson was 3. He wouldn't have full tasting menus. I recalculated, $12,000 for dining. Flights, $27,900. Hotels, $32,000. Dining, $12,000. Total $71,900. Garrett had claimed this was his treat. But Brittany's post from December 24th was tagged #GratefulForInLaws, with a photo of my mother and Brittany clinking wine glasses. My parents paid for it. Not Garrett. $72,000. While I ate an $8.99 frozen lasagna on Christmas Day, sitting on the kitchen floor at 11:47 p.m., because I was too tired to sit in a chair after doing Grandpa's laundry, cleaning the bathrooms, checking his medications, making sure he was warm and fed and safe. December 26th, 9:02 a.m. Brittany posted a photo of a gondola in Venice. Everyone in designer coats. Grayson holding a gelato. Caption: Nothing says Boxing Day like Venetian canals #Aman Venice #blessed. Blessed. I stared at that word for a long time. My phone buzzed. Text from Mom. Hi, honey. Hope you and Grandpa are having a nice time. We're in Venice. Absolutely stunning. How's everything going? I typed 4 different responses. Deleted all of them. Finally sent. Fine. Grandpa's doing well. Her reply came in seconds. Oh, good. We'll be home the 30th. Don't forget his evening meds. XO. Don't forget his evening meds. I'm a hospice nurse. I manage medication schedules for 12 dying patients simultaneously. I track morphine drips, fentanyl patches, anti-nausea protocols, pain scales, comfort measures. But my mother felt the need to remind me, while she was drinking Prosecco in Venice, to remember Grandpa's pills. I screenshotted the text, added it to a folder on my phone I'd labeled Evidence. 18 screenshots now. Grandpa appeared in the kitchen doorway. I didn't know he'd been standing there. Did they ask how you are? He said quietly. I looked back at the text. We're in Venice, absolutely stunning. How's everything going? Everything. Not how are you, everything. Which meant, is Grandpa still alive? No, I said. They didn't. Grandpa nodded once. They never do. That night I couldn't sleep again. I opened my notes app. Did more math. My salary, $68,000 per year. After taxes, approximately $51,000. Per month, $4,250. Per week, $981. December 20th to 30th equals 10 days. I'd earned $1,403 in those 10 days, gross. Before taxes, about $1,050 net. Their trip, $72,000. Their trip cost 68.5 times what I earned while caring for Grandpa. Put another way, their vacation cost more than I'd earn in 14 months of full-time hospice nursing. Garrett made $285,000 a year. In the 10 days they were gone, he earned approximately $10,959, even though he wasn't working. Paid time off. I earned $1,050, working 24/7, no pay, no thank you. And my mother had written in that note, maybe caregiving is your real calling since nursing hasn't exactly made you successful. I remembered that word. Successful. I looked at Brittany's Instagram again. The champagne, the Alps, the gondolas, the designer coats, the Michelin stars, and I thought, define success. 2:03 p.m. The doorbell rang. Grandpa was already sitting in the living room, dressed in his navy suit from 1987, the one he'd worn to my graduation. He'd shined his shoes, combed his white hair with water. I opened the door. A man in his 60s stood there. Gray suit, silver tie, leather briefcase, kind eyes. Ms. Weston? I'm Bernard Price. Your grandfather is expecting me. I let him in. We sat in the dining room, formal. The table we never used. Grandpa at the head, me to his right, Bernard across from us. Bernard opened his briefcase, removed a leather folder. 47 pages inside. I counted later. Arthur, Bernard said, I've prepared the documents as you requested. The new trust, the will, and the letter. Grandpa nodded. Isabel, this is Bernard. He's going to explain some things. Bernard turned to me. His expression was neutral, but not unkind. Ms. Weston, your grandfather has asked me to execute significant changes to his estate plan. These changes are considerable. He slid the documents across the table. I saw my name, Isabel Catherine Weston, over and over. Beneficiary, trustee, executor. I saw numbers. Dollar amounts with so many zeros I lost count. Bernard explained. I heard him as if from underwater. Trust value, $20,347,000. My father, $250,000. My mother, $250,000. My brother, $250,000. Designated charities, $4,500,000. Isabel Catherine Weston, $15,047,000. Plus full discretionary control over any additional distributions to family members. I couldn't breathe. What? Grandpa reached over, took my hand. His fingers were gnarled with arthritis, but his grip was strong. They left you here like you were nothing, he said quietly. I'm leaving you everything to prove you're not. Bernard pulled out a sealed envelope, cream-colored, heavy paper. Your grandfather has also requested I be present when the family returns to read this letter aloud. They're scheduled to arrive December 30th, correct? I nodded, unable to speak. I'll be here at 3 p.m. that day, Grandpa signed. 12 places. Bernard witnessed. I witnessed, my hand shaking so badly I could barely write my name. Timestamp on the notary seal, 2:38 p.m., December 28th, 2024. Legal, binding, irrevocable. We didn't talk much. Grandpa and I moved through the house quietly. I made breakfast. He read the newspaper. I did laundry. He sat in his chair. Around noon, he said, You can give them money if you want, Izzy. That's your choice. But the control is yours. They'll have to ask you. They'll have to acknowledge you, for once. What if I say no? Then you say no. I texted Trevor. Something big is happening tomorrow. I can't explain yet, but I think I'm going to be okay. He replied, You've always been okay, Isabel. They just made you think you weren't. That night I lay awake thinking about 31 years. Graduations, birthdays, Thanksgivings, the COVID ward, the note. I didn't need forgiveness. I needed them to see me. And tomorrow they would. My phone buzzed. Text from Mom. Landed. Be home by 2:30. Can't wait to see you both. Grandpa read it over my shoulder. She says can't wait, he murmured. She could have called any of the 10 days. She didn't. Should I warn them? About Bernard? No. Let them walk in like they always do, expecting nothing to have changed. Bernard arrived. Set his briefcase on the coffee table. We sat down. Grandpa on his rocking chair. Me on the sofa. Bernard in the armchair. The front door was unlocked. 2:34 p.m. I heard car engines. 3 of them. All at once. BMW X5, Lexus ES 350, Mercedes GLC. They were home. Doors slammed, luggage wheels on pavement. Laughter. My mother's voice bright and loud. We're home! Garrett. God, I miss American coffee. My father. Izzy? Dad? They came through the door, tanned, rested, smiling. Brittany carried a Hermes bag. Grayson held a chocolate bear from Lindt. They walked into the living room, saw us sitting there, saw Bernard, the suit, the briefcase, the documents on the table. Their smiles faltered. Mom looked confused. Dad looked suspicious. Garrett's eyes narrowed. Dad? My father said slowly. What's going on? Who is this? Grandpa's voice was steel. Sit down, Gerald. My father stood in the archway between the foyer and living room. My mother beside him, her hand creeping up to her throat. Garrett and Brittany behind them, still holding their luggage. Little Grayson broke free and ran upstairs, clutching his iPad. He didn't understand. Lucky him. Dad, Gerald said again. His voice had an edge now. What the hell is this? Who is this man? Grandpa didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. This is Bernard Price, my attorney. Sit down. Diane laughed nervously. The sound was too high, too bright. Arthur, you're scaring us. Is everything all right? Are you sick? I'm fine. Sit. Down. The command in his voice left no room for argument. They sat. Gerald and Diane took the love seat, stiff, uncomfortable, perched on the edge. Garrett dragged 2 dining chairs into the living room, the legs scraping against the hardwood. He and Brittany sat. Garrett's knee started bouncing immediately. A tell. He only did that when he was nervous. I stayed on the sofa next to Grandpa's chair. Bernard sat across from all of them, briefcase open, hands folded calmly over the documents. The silence stretched. Diane broke first. She looked at me. Actually looked at me for the first time since walking in. Izzy, honey, what is this about? I met her eyes, kept my voice level, cold. I don't know, Mom. Grandpa didn't tell me in advance either. But unlike you, I was here. Her face went pale. Gerald's jaw tightened. I saw the muscle jump. Garrett leaned forward, elbows on his knees, trying to take control of the situation, lawyer mode. Grandpa, if this is about money, we can discuss this privately. You don't need a lawyer for... Grandpa cut him off. Yes, I do. Because you would have talked me out of it. Garrett blinked. Talked you out of what? Changing my will. The words dropped like a bomb into still water. Silence. I counted. 4 seconds. 5. Garrett's face shifted through 3 expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion, then calculation, then something that looked like panic. Diane's hand tightened on Gerald's arm, nails digging into the fabric of his jacket. Gerald spoke slowly, carefully, the way you'd speak to someone on a ledge. You changed your will. Yes. When? December 28th, 2 days ago. Diane's voice went up an octave. While we were gone? Grandpa leaned forward. The rocking chair creaked. No, Diane. While you abandoned me. And Isabel. The word abandoned hung in the air like smoke. Diane flushed red. Her mouth opened, closed. She looked at Gerald for help. Gerald tried a different approach, softening his voice. Concerned son. Dad, we didn't abandon you. We left you in good hands. Isabel is a professional caregiver. We knew you'd be safe with her. You left her a note, Grandpa said. His voice was still quiet, but now it had an edge like broken glass. You didn't call. You didn't ask if she was available. You wrote a note and left for Europe. It was last minute, Diane started. It was selfish. Garrett stood up suddenly, chair scraping, pointing at me. Did you put him up to this? Every eye turned to me. I stayed seated, hands folded in my lap, voice steady. I didn't even know until yesterday. Brittany tugged at Garrett's sleeve. Babe, sit down. He shook her off. Grandpa, she's manipulating you. She's a nurse. She knows how to work vulnerable elderly people. This is textbook. Grandpa stood. It took him effort. His arthritis made every movement painful, but he stood. All 5 feet 9 inches of him, 160 pounds, 82 years old, and in that moment he was a giant. Sit down, boy. Garrett sat. I had never heard Grandpa use that voice before. None of us had. Isabel didn't manipulate anything. She was here. She checked my blood sugar twice a day. She made sure I took my medications. She cooked meals. She did laundry. She sat with me on Christmas Day when I was alone because the 3 of you were drinking champagne in Paris. Gerald opened his mouth. We asked her to. You told her. There's a difference. My mother's eyes darted to the kitchen counter. I followed her gaze. The note was still there, where I'd left it 10 days ago. She realized Grandpa had read it. Her face went white. Garrett was breathing hard now, trying to regain control. Grandpa, how much are we talking about? What did you change? Grandpa looked at Bernard, nodded once. Bernard opened the folder, and I watched my family's world end. Bernard's voice was calm, professional. He could have been reading a grocery list, but every word was a hammer blow. Arthur James Weston's Revocable Living Trust. Amended December 28, 2024. He paused, made sure everyone was listening. Total assets, $20,347,000. Diane gasped. Actually gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. Gerald's eyes went wide. 20 million? Dad, I thought you said— You thought I was poor, Grandpa said quietly. I let you think that. I wanted to see who loved me when they thought I had nothing. Bernard continued, unruffled. Distribution as follows. Another pause. I could hear Diane's breathing, quick and shallow. To Gerald Thomas Weston, $250,000. Gerald's face went slack. To Diane Marie Weston, $250,000. Mom made a small sound in her throat. Not quite a sob. Something worse. To Garrett Alexander Weston, $250,000. Garrett was staring at Bernard like he'd been slapped. To designated charities, specifically the Clatskanie High School Scholarship Fund, the Oregon Hospice Foundation, and Disabled Veterans of Oregon, $4,500,000. Brittany whispered, "Oh my God." To Isabel Catherine Weston, $15,047,000 plus full discretionary control over any additional distributions to family members at her sole discretion. Silence. Not the kind of silence that's peaceful. The kind that comes right before an explosion. 11 seconds. I counted them. Then Garrett whispered, 15 million? My brain couldn't process it. $15 million. I made $68,000 a year. That was— I couldn't even do the math. 221 years of work. More than 3 lifetimes. Gerald was shaking, his whole body trembling like he'd been hit. Dad, you can't— she doesn't— He couldn't finish a sentence. Grandpa's voice cut through. She doesn't what, Gerald? Deserve it? Why? Because she's just a nurse? Because she isn't successful? Gerald had no answer. Diane started crying. Real tears this time, streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. Arthur, please. We're your family. You're my blood, Grandpa said. Isabel is my family. Bernard reached into the folder again, pulled out a sealed envelope. Cream paper, heavy stock. Arthur has asked me to read a letter he's written, aloud, to all of you. That's not necessary, Gerald started. It's extremely necessary, Bernard said. His professional veneer cracked just slightly. I saw anger there. He'd read this letter. He knew what it said. He opened the envelope, unfolded 3 pages of Grandpa's handwriting, and he began to read. To my son Gerald, my daughter-in-law Diane, and my grandson Garrett, I am 82 years old. I have lived long enough to see who people really are when they think no one is watching. I built Weston Timber Holdings from nothing. 1 truck in 1965. 1 logging crew. I worked 16-hour days for 47 years. In 2012, I sold the company for $24 million. You, Gerald, assumed I'd spent it. You never asked. You just assumed your old father was careless with money. You thought I was down to maybe $200,000 in savings. Living on Social Security. I let you believe that. Because I wanted to see who would love me when they thought I was poor. The $24 million is now $20.3 million. I live on $38,000 a year. The rest I've donated anonymously. Scholarships, hospice programs, veterans services. I've been doing this for 12 years. You never noticed. Gerald was staring at the floor. Diane was openly sobbing now. Garrett's face had gone from red to white to gray. Bernard kept reading, relentless. For 31 years, I have watched you treat my granddaughter like a backup plan, like hired help, like something to be used when convenient and ignored when not. May 19, 2018. Her nursing school graduation. You missed it to fly to Seattle for Garrett's deposition. You sent her $100 on Venmo. December 14, 2020. Her 28th birthday. She called you, crying, after watching another COVID patient die. You told her you were busy celebrating Garrett's promotion. You sent her a $25 Starbucks gift card. Thanksgiving 2022. You flew to Boston for Garrett's MBA family weekend. You left Isabel alone. She invited me to her tiny apartment. She made turkey for the first time. It was burned. We ate it anyway. It was the best Thanksgiving I've had in 30 years, because someone actually wanted me there. Diane looked at me. Her eyes were pleading. I looked back with nothing. No forgiveness, no anger, nothing. This Christmas, you left her a note. Not a phone call. A note. You told her that caregiving might be her real calling since nursing hasn't exactly made her successful. Do you understand what she does? Isabel is a hospice nurse. She holds the hands of dying strangers. She helps people leave this world with dignity, with comfort, with someone who sees them as human beings in their final moments. She does this for $68,000 a year. Garrett, you help corporations avoid paying taxes. You make $285,000 a year. You are rewarded. She is dismissed. You spent $72,000 on a European vacation while she checked my blood sugar and made sure I didn't die alone. I have lived long enough to know this truth. Wealth without character is poverty. You three are rich. You are also empty. Garrett stood up again. This is insane. You can't. Bernard didn't even look up, just kept reading. Isabel spent 10 days with me, not because you asked her nicely, because you expected her to. You demanded it in a passive-aggressive note and left for Paris. She didn't know I have $20 million. She thought I was poor. She stayed anyway. She made me coffee every morning in my 1991 coffee maker. She checked my medications like I mattered. She sat with me on Christmas Day and didn't complain once that she was missing her life, her boyfriend, her plans. That is why she gets everything. My eyes were burning. I was crying now, silent tears. Grandpa reached over, squeezed my hand. Bernard's voice never wavered. Gerald, Diane, Garrett, you will each receive $250,000. That is more than generous given your treatment of Isabel over the past 31 years. If you want more, you will ask her. You will apologize to her. You will prove to her that you have changed. You will show her that you see her as a human being, not a tool. She will decide, at her sole discretion, if you deserve another dollar. Not me. Her. This is not punishment. This is accountability. This is you reaping what you've sown. I love you, but I will not reward cruelty. Arthur James Weston, December 27th, 2024. Bernard folded the letter, set it down. The room was absolutely silent except for Diane's crying. Then Garrett exploded. He stood up, knocking his chair backward. This is bullshit. You can't. Bernard's voice was ice. It's legal, notarized, executed. I evaluated Mr. Weston personally. He is of sound mind. This will stand. Diane turned to me, her face twisted with something between rage and desperation. You planned this. You manipulated a sick old man. I found my voice. It came out steady, cold. He's not sick. You just assumed he was helpless because he's old. You don't even know him. Gerald pointed at me, shaking. Isabel, you don't understand money. You'll lose it all in 5 years. You need our help too. I understand money fine, Dad. I just never had any because you spent mine on Garrett. The truth of that hit him. I saw it in his face. Garrett turned to Grandpa, desperate now. Grandpa, I'll contest this. I'll get lawyers. Bernard stood up, closed his briefcase with a decisive snap. You can try. Oregon law is very clear on testamentary capacity. Your grandfather is lucid, uncoerced, and acting of his own free will. You'll lose, and the legal fees will cost you your $250,000. I'd advise against it. Brittany grabbed Garrett's arm. Baby, maybe we should just— Shut up, Brittany. She flinched. Grandpa stood, slowly, painfully. But he stood. And he said the words I'll remember for the rest of my life. Get out of my house. Gerald's face went purple. Dad, this is my— No, it's mine. The deed is in my name, always has been. I let you think it was yours, so you'd take care of it. I was wrong. Get out. They left, not quietly. Diane grabbed her purse, turned at the door. Her voice was vicious. You'll regret this, Isabel. Family is everything. I stood up, looked her in the eye. Then why did you treat me like I was nothing? She had no answer. She left. Garrett stopped in the doorway, looked back at me. You're going to give us that money. You know you will. Because you're weak. Something inside me went very still, very calm. Try me. 3 cars left the driveway. BMW, Lexus, Mercedes. Little Grayson waved at me from the back window of the BMW. He didn't understand what had just happened. I waved back. The house went quiet. Bernard packed his briefcase. Ms. Weston, you'll receive account access within 48 hours. My office will guide you through everything. Congratulations. For what? He smiled, small but genuine. For being seen. He left. Grandpa and I sat alone in the living room, just like we had for 10 days. But everything had changed. My phone started buzzing. Text from Diane. Isabel, we need to talk. This is ridiculous. Call me. I didn't respond. 8:12 p.m. Gerald. You're making a huge mistake. That money was meant for the family. Delete. 10:37 p.m. Garrett. Wow, didn't know you were this petty. Guess hospice taught you how to watch people suffer. I stared at that one for a long time, then I screenshotted it, added it to my folder. The messages kept coming. 7:04 a.m. Diane, please, I'm your mother, we can fix this. 9:50 a.m. Brittany. Hey Isabel, would love to grab coffee and catch up. XO, I counted. By end of day December 31st, 47 text messages, 12 phone calls, 3 emails, 1 voicemail. The voicemail was Diane, crying. Izzy, please, I know we haven't been perfect, but we're family. We love you. Please call me back. Please. I saved it. Didn't reply. Trevor called at 11 a.m. Babe, what the hell happened? Your mom called me, asked what I did to turn you against them. I'll explain in person. Can you come over? On my way. December 31st, 2:18 p.m. I knock at the door. I opened it. Diane stood there, alone, no makeup. First time I'd seen her without it in maybe ever. Eyes swollen, holding a Tupperware container. Izzy, sweetheart, can we talk? Just us? I stood in the doorway, didn't invite her in. What do you want, Mom? I brought cookies, your favorite, Snickerdoodle. I looked at the container, looked at her. I'm allergic to cinnamon, Mom. I have been since I was 12. She blinked, confused. What? You don't know that, because you've never paid attention. Snickerdoodles are Garrett's favorite, not mine. I saw the realization hit her face. She'd been making Garrett's favorite cookies for 19 years and calling them mine. Isabel, I know we haven't been perfect, but… Haven't been perfect? My voice rose. I didn't mean for it to, but it did. Mom, you left me a note calling me unsuccessful. You spent Christmas in Venice while I checked Grandpa's blood sugar. You missed my graduation. You sent me $25 on my birthday during COVID when I was terrified and alone. We were busy. Garrett is 34 years old. When do I get to need you? Silence. Then her face changed. The tears stopped. Her voice went cold. Fine. How much do you want? What? To share the money. Grandpa obviously wanted family to have it, not just you. So name your price. How much to split it evenly? We'll each take $5 million. That's fair. I stared at her. She thought this was a negotiation. You think this is about money? Isn't it? No, Mom. It's about 31 years of being invisible. And you can't buy your way out of that. I closed the door. She stood outside for 4 minutes. I watched through the peephole. Then she left. Email from garrett.weston@klgates.com. Subject: Grandfather's estate. Isabel, I've consulted with estate attorneys at my firm. While Grandpa's will is legally sound, it raises questions about undue influence and your proximity during his final decision-making period. I'm prepared to avoid litigation if you agree to the following. Redistribute the estate as 40% to you, 20% each to Mom, Dad, and myself. This reflects Grandpa's true intent, family unity. If you refuse, I will pursue legal action for elder manipulation under Oregon Revised Statutes 124.100. Hospice nurses have been prosecuted for less. Think carefully. Garrett. I forwarded it to Bernard at 9:14 a.m. His reply came at 9:47 a.m. Empty threat. Save this email. If he files anything, we'll use it to show harassment and possible bar ethics violations. Do not respond. BP. I didn't respond. 8:03 p.m. Garrett texted, "Ignoring me won't work." I replied, "Talk to my lawyer, Bernard Price, 503-555-0192. Garrett, "You have a lawyer now? Jesus Christ." Me, "Yep." Gerald called. Left a voicemail, the only one I listened to all the way through. "Isabel, it's Dad. Look, I know we haven't been... I know I wasn't there for you, but you're my daughter, and 6-second pause. I need you to do the right thing, for the family. Not, I'm sorry, not, I was wrong, just, I need you to." I deleted it. I called Bernard. "I want to set up conditions." "I'm listening." "They each get their $250,000. But if they want me to consider giving them more in the future, they need to do 3 things. 1. Attend 12 months of family therapy, professionally led. I get attendance verification. 2. Volunteer 50 hours at a hospice facility. I want them to see what I do. 3. Write me letters, handwritten, explaining what they did wrong and how they'll change. I decide if they're sincere." Bernard was quiet for a moment. "That's very fair. Generous, actually. I'm a hospice nurse. I believe in second chances. I also believe in accountability. I'll draft the terms. Certified mail?" "Yes." They received the letter. Garrett called. I didn't answer. Voicemail. "You want us to volunteer? To write you letters? This is fucking degrading." I texted back. "So is being left alone on Christmas your move?" Email from Dr. Ellen Moss, licensed family therapist. "Miss Weston, per your agreement, I confirm Diane Weston attended her first session on January 15, 2025. Per confidentiality, I cannot share details, but she is compliant with the terms you've set." I stared at that email for 8 minutes. My mother, who had never admitted fault in her entire life, who had spent 31 years gaslighting me into thinking I was too sensitive, too needy, too much. She was going to therapy because I'd made it a condition of receiving more money. Was it genuine, or was it just $500,000 worth of performance? I didn't know yet. Gerald enrolled. Confirmation email from Dr. Moss. January 29th. Garrett didn't. Instead, he sent a text. "I'm not jumping through hoops for money that should have been mine. Keep it. I don't need you." I replied, "Okay." That was it. Just okay. Because I didn't need to convince him. Didn't need to argue. Didn't need to prove anything. The ball was in his court. What he did with it was his choice. February 3rd, 2025. 4:17 a.m. I woke up to my phone ringing. Grandpa's number. But it wasn't Grandpa. It was 911. The paramedics had used his phone to call his emergency contact. Me. I drove to the house in 12 minutes, broke every speed limit. The ambulance was still in the driveway, but they weren't rushing. I knew what that meant. Inside, Grandpa was in his rocking chair, eyes closed, peaceful. The paramedic, A woman in her 40s looked at me with professional sympathy. I'm sorry. He was gone before we arrived. Looks like heart failure. Quick, he didn't suffer. I sat down next to him, took his hand. It was still warm. Can I have a minute? Of course. They left me alone with him. I did what I'd done with hundreds of patients over 8 years. Held his hand, closed his eyes gently, whispered, "You're free now." But before that, I leaned close to his ear. "Thank you," I whispered, "for seeing me, for proving I wasn't crazy, for giving me justice. And I swear, I know it's impossible, I know he was already gone, but I swear his hand squeezed mine. Just once." Ash spreading ceremony. Grandpa had planned it all in advance. Cremation, no service. Ashes spread in his tomato garden. Gerald came, Diane came, Garrett came. They stood far apart, didn't speak to each other, barely looked at me. I scattered Grandpa's ashes myself, around the roots of the tomato plants he'd kept alive for 37 years. After, Diane approached me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For everything." I looked at her, really looked. "Are you sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught?" Tears spilled down her face. I don't know yet." "When you figure it out, write it in your letter." She nodded, left. I stood in that garden alone for 20 minutes after everyone left. The tomato plants were dormant, dead-looking, but I knew better. They were just waiting, waiting for spring, waiting to grow again, just like me. 6 months later, Mom and Dad have attended 18 therapy sessions. Dad has volunteered 23 hours at hospice. He's cried twice. Once when a patient reminded him of his own father. Once when a daughter sat vigil for 3 days straight, and he realized he'd never done that for anyone. Mom wrote me a letter, 4 pages, handwritten. I'm not ready to forgive. But I'm reading. Garrett never enrolled, never volunteered, never wrote. His $250,000 is gone. He bought a boat. We don't speak. I donated $2 million to the Oregon Hospice Foundation in Grandpa's name. It funded 3 new palliative care wings. The patients there will die with dignity, the way Grandpa wanted for everyone. I kept $13 million, invested it conservatively, quit my job at the hospital, but I still work part-time in hospice care. I love what I do. Now I just own my apartment instead of renting it. Trevor proposed for real on June 15th. Multnomah Falls, fairy lights. I said yes. The money didn't change me. It freed me. From needing their approval, from believing I was less than, from waiting to be seen. My name is Isabel Catherine Weston. I'm 31 years old. I'm a hospice nurse. And I'm finally successful. Not because I'm rich, because I'm free.